Hey guys, how are we doing? Crypto Insight UK here, bringing you back another YouTube video. So obviously yesterday we got the monthly close and the weekly close, but I'm not even going to touch on them because I feel like everyone's just going to touch on the same thing across crypto, Twitter and YouTube potentially today. What I want to touch on is liquidity and short-term price action here for Bitcoin, Ethereum and XRP. So Bitcoin came down to about this 107.3 level, and if we look, we'll go on liquidity and then we'll come back and look at the assets on the daily time frame. On the hourly, we've got a few things to compare. I made a tweet about this over there on X, so if you want to go and check that out, did quite a deep dive into it, and we can discuss, this is what I'm going to discuss right now. So, for a while, Bitcoin's had this liquidity below us here at about 106k. I said for when we were in this range up here, I didn't know if we were going to come back and test it. My base case is that we weren't before we moved up higher, and that's because on the daily, liquidity above us is much denser. I'll just quickly show you that before I get into the continuation of this discussion, so you can understand what I'm talking about. So we were up here, and I said, look, it's likely that we come and take this liquidity because we wicked into it, and following basically taking some liquidity, it's normally a continuation. So that's why essentially I discussed I didn't think we come and take this. However, now we're down at these levels, it's more likely than not that we do continue to take this liquidity here for Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, so remember what this structure looks like here. Bitcoin is right at that liquidity now, just starting to take that. If we compare that to ETH, it's quite different. ETH had this structure that we discussed where, do you remember in this time period here where I said, look, we're making this higher low, higher high, lower low, lower high, lower low structure, and if we break that, we'll have quite a nice pop to the upside. All of that played out, and then now we actually have come back to this sort of area as well, and we can see this more dense liquidity again below us, sitting at around $4,050-ish, just slightly below that as well, which is about a 10% pullback-ish from where we are. Now, that's obviously we have liquidity above us too, but I would say the denser liquidity, as you can see from the chart, is below. Below the recent low or the swing low at 470, the dense liquidity sits about 4,000 to 450. Now, if we compare that to XRP, for example, it's actually pretty different. We look at XRP on the hourly, and let's just get rid of these. XRP has taken the red liquidity below us. So my discussion basically is XRP front running here? Is it going to front run altcoins? Is it going to lead structurally being different, having taken the swing lows, which is where this is where the 4,050 level-ish is for ETH. XRP has wicked below and taken that liquidity. And now what we can see is the main liquidity for XRP sits above us. So do we, with XRP, continue and reverse to the upside here? Adding on to that discussion, if we look at XRP Bitcoin chart, what we can see here is, I'm going to take us to 4 hourly, is this previous resistance box. If you remember when we're in this area, I said, look, what I think is going to happen, Bitcoin's made a range, going to sweep the lows of the range, going to come back up. This is about 50% of the range, and then hopefully continue from here. So when we're in this level, we wanted to flip this resistance into support. Currently, we are holding that support, and all these white circles are on the 4 hour where we've touched or wicked into the oversold area. And although I've said that these haven't marked specific bottom, more often than not, they have had a decent reaction, especially when we're in an area of support like this. So that's another thing to add to confidence that we could be seeing a potential bottom here for XRP Bitcoin, and the potential that XRP could be leading altcoins here. I'm not going to go too much further into detail. I'm going to show you the daily time frame for all these altcoins as well. So for Bitcoin, ETH, and XRP, the three main cryptos by market cap. XRP main liquidity is above us, still sitting massively heavy up towards 420. If we look at ETH is a bit different. We've taken the majority of the liquidity to the upside, which would again suggest that we could potentially see an outperformance of another alt, because ETH has had that push into this liquidity, and although today looks green. But one thing I will remind you today that there is no markets open in the US as it's a public holiday. So ETH I'm a bit hands-off with. I don't really know where ETH is going. But finally, Bitcoin, as I already showed you on the daily, does look like to the upside that there could be a push into this liquidity, about 126k, 128k, and then we're starting to see orange liquidity now at 141. When we get this moved back to this upside, back to the upside here, and everyone stops shitting the bed, it's going to be pretty aggressive, and people are going to be caught on the wrong side of the trade. I've seen a lot of people closing positions. Those people will start to buy back when euphoria returns, and that will add fuel to the fire. That's one of the reasons I really don't think the top is in yet for crypto. So I don't want to really make this video any longer than it needs to be. So I'm going to leave it there, short and sweet for you guys. Let me know if you agree with my thought process. Do you think XRP could be leading the market here into the next phase of the market? I've said for the whole cycle, I think XRP is leading. Let's see if I'm right. I mean, in the next few weeks, we're going to be able to tell. This doesn't mean that this is my opinion specifically. I'm just showing you charts here. You've seen the structural differences. Let's see. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, please do hit the like button, subscribe button, and share it with a friend. Let me know if you've got any questions in the comment section below. I wrote a deep dive on Saturday in the Weekly Insight, which is free to read. 2,850 weekly readers now, so thank you very much for that, everybody who reads. Peace up, A-Town down, as Crypto Insight UK would say.